Students, this section is working with the real number line. So within this section, this is 2.1, we're going to be looking at graphing points on a number line. A lot of chapter 2 is review of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing of integers. So I'm going to touch base on different important things you need to know within this chapter. And for this section, graphing real numbers and the real number line, we're going to talk about absolute value. But before we get into that, it says when working with a number line, 0 is the origin. All numbers to the left of the number of 0 represent negative numbers, and all numbers to the right of 0 represent positive numbers. And then opposites. Those are 2 points that are the same distance from 0 from the origin, but on opposite sides of 0. Another way to think of opposites is working with absolute value, which is the distance from 0. So absolute value is always positive though, and it's represented in the following way, where you see 2 bars and a number's in between the bars. So this is saying the absolute value of 4 here in this example. What is the absolute value of 4? Well, it's 4. So absolute value is the distance it is to get to a number from 0. So let's just get started with some examples here. It says find the absolute value of the following. So for A, we have the absolute value of 2.3. So what is the distance from 0 to 2.3? That is just 2.3. For B, the absolute value of negative 0.5, that is going to be positive 0.5. Absolute value is always positive, but C would be an exception of that, because notice you have a negative outside the absolute value sign and then negative within the absolute value. So this is saying negative 8. Well, the absolute value of negative 8 is 8, but you have this negative sign outside of the absolute value. So our answer there is actually going to be a negative 8. Example 2, now they're giving you points and they want you to graph them on the number line and then write 2 inequalities that compare the 2 numbers. So half and negative 2.3. Well, half as a decimal is 0.5. Where does that fall on the number line? Well, it's directly in the middle between 0 and 1. So we'll label it here as 1/2. And then negative 2.3, so that's going to fall between negative 2 and negative 3, and it's right here, negative 2.3. So I've graphed the points. Now I'm going to write an inequality. Remember, inequalities could be greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So these numbers are not equal at all, so we're going to be using the less than and greater than sign, these right here. Negative 2.3 is less than half, so that's one way we can write an inequality. Another way we could have written this out was 1/2 is greater than negative 2.3. So that's 2 different ways to write that. Now example number 3, very similarly, we want to write the following numbers in increased order when graphed on the number line, and then graph it on the number line. So we're going to first write them in increasing order, which means from smallest number to largest number. So my smallest number here, negative 3/2 is negative 1.5 as a decimal. So if that's helpful for you to change that fraction into a decimal when you're looking and graphing points on a number line, then do that. So negative 3/2 is going to be my smallest number. Actually, that is incorrect. It's actually negative 2. Then it's going to be negative 1.5. I like to cross the numbers out too after I've used them so I don't make any mistakes here. Then the next value, if you think on a number line, going from smallest to largest is going to be 0. Then 1/2, positive 1.5, and 4. So these are the numbers written in increasing order. Now we're going to graph them on the number line. Negative 2 is right here. Negative 1.5, 0, half, 1.5, and 4. And that'll be my answer. So there are two parts to it. You have to write it in increasing order and graph the points. And that is it for this section. We'll do some more practice in class.